fellow readers, welcome to the channel The Stars, the Books. So sorry, I haven't posted in a while, but I am truly beat after transporting the insides of a 20-year-old apartment. I'm a hoarder of sorts. Into my new residence with the sole but trustworthy help of a 1-liter engine VW 1997 Polo. Yep. Now you see how stupidly and hardly I roll. But enough about me. We are here to discuss books, and a great book I bring you today, especially if you are into politics and diplomacy. Ladies and gentlemen, The Wizard of the Kremlin by the Italian political scientist Giuliano da Empoli. So it's as if Machiavelli decides to write an updated version of the Prince with a particular recipe on how to become a Russian president. The grimmest part of it all is that there was once indeed such a Prince of Darkness, a shady character named Vladislav Surkov, rumored to have played a pivotal role in the early stages of Putin's political career and also credited as being his main ideologue. Let's pull up our sleeves and dive into the nitty-gritty of a Russian presidency. The narrator is one Vadim Baranov, loosely based, remember, on the biography of Vladislav Surkov. And Baranov is a failed man of letters, an agonizing poet struggling with the fall of communism, and by chance he sort of becomes a media mogul, a protege of Boris Berezovsky himself. Boris Berezovsky was a real-life tycoon, a media mogul, an oligarch credited for restoring the political health of a flailing Boris Yeltsin in the polls. In the wonderful scene in the book, Baranov and Berezovsky, sensing that Russia might go under with Yeltsin, approached none other than Putin and tried to persuade him to become the Kremlin's new strongman, tried to persuade him that he is indeed the man, the savior of Russia's flailing fate. Listen to the persuasive arguments of Boris on page 88. You are young, a sportsman, energetic. You transmit that sensation of power. Your past in the security services is an assurance of reliability. Being a man of few words plays in your favor. The Russians are tired of quacks. They want to be driven by a steady hand that restores order to the streets, as well as the moral authority to the state. You won't have to guess how this encounter took place, because Giuliani photographs it in front of your very eyes. Baranov describes his first impressions of Putin on page 86. In his gaze, you can already guess that mineral quality is known for these days, but it was still dissimulated by the willing effort to keep it under control. Then, in the way Putin deals with Chechen insurrection in the 1990s, while he was acting prime minister, illustrates Baranov's point, reinstated throughout the book, that Russians' idea of power is a whole different ballgame to that of the West. About that on page 106. It was the voice of command and control. It was a long time since the Russians had lastly heard it, but they recognized it immediately, because that's the voice their parents and grandparents were used to. Or on page 107, when the Tsar talks politics, he never deals in stats. He talks of the language of life, death, honor, motherland. Politics has a sole purpose: to answer the terrors of man. And this is the society we are now faced to confront. Everything seems to be depicted under a black or white backdrop, a life or death matter. There's no civil society, there are no citizens, only nationals, no personal cause is allowed to exist other than the nation. Every dead soldier is either a hero to the cause or a martyr to the cause. Their resilience is undoubtedly, unmistakably, undeniably Olympic. Their economy hasn't even slowed down much ever since they invaded Ukraine, and there isn't still massive protest on the street. Even in World War II, they sustained, proportionally to the Wehrmacht, a greater number of casualties, but they still came out on top. I would argue this is the closest modern equivalent to a Spartan upbringing, and they're being driven jingoistically into war with its mortal enemy, the West. NATO paranoia is very substantial and real over there. It has been so for several decades. So not even Jesus himself could persuade them that no harm is intended, that us decadent, feeble, peace-loving Westerners who argue over which sex gets to use which bathroom would never really, not in a million years, try to throw a jab at the Russian bear. To sum up, they're most likely willing to suffer the slings and arrows of their government's errors than we are willing to suffer the rightful effects of our government's stance on Ukrainian support. But I digress. Let's pick up the book where we left it. When Putin came to power, very well, what ensues is utterly, absolutely phenomenal, as you will take a back seat to some of the most memorable or grimmer episodes of his tenure. There's the Chechen Wars, the sinking of the Kursk, the downfall of Berezovsky and other thin-ice stepping oligarchs. There's the rise of Prigozhin through the ranks, Pussy Riot, Garry Kasparov, the Night Wolves. The Night Wolves is a bikers gang with extreme nationalist views. But one of the most striking episodes described there is the use of canine intimidation vis-a-vis Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, has a known phobia of dogs, and that's exactly why Putin, in a high-level summit they held, paraded his Labrador around, hoping to intimidate her. The marriage between historical fact and fiction is extremely well accomplished throughout the book. You will have a very hard time pinpointing where fiction stops and reality ends. If I may, a special word about the evocation of Limanov. Limanov was a hell-raising writer, activist, agitprop, polemist who had very interesting insights into Russian sociology and world politics. He sort of was the first to coalesce all the different Russian vanguards into a single unifying notion of conservatism through the creation of the National Bolshevik Party, which Alexander Dugin also adhered to, but he probably did it too soon for the Kremlin's taste. But the Kremlin took due notice. So, about Limanov, listen to this on page 140. I really enjoyed this part. 140. The problem is not USA imperialism. I'm not mad at them over Allende or stupid crap like that. The exercise of a power, albeit a violent one, is part of the nature of any empire, and at the end of the day, they are no worse than all the others that came before, including our white and red Tsarevich. The problem is the content of American culture, a de-civilization which has rendered true greatness impossible in exchange of a happy meal for everybody. They're not even touched by the idea that the purpose of human existence might not be to live as comfortably or as long as possible. What youngsters today want is to escape banality, boredom. In every one of them there's a spark of heroism expecting to be fed. If it wishes to remain alive, every people must believe that it's only in them that the salvation of the world resides. And this is a very dangerous notion and toxic notion of exceptionalism that afflicts the powerful nations of the world. Really, we are divided between American exceptionalism, the trigger-happy, no social security, every man for himself, American exceptionalism, the Russian exceptionalism, which is so exceptional that it needs to be bombarded into every other aspiring country, and the much more subversive and surreptitious Chinese exceptionalism. And all of them compete, trying to spoon-feed the rest of the world. So, what are we left with when closing this book? Page 201, chaos was our friend. Surely, our only possibility. This narrative, this political narrative of force feeds itself until the foreseeable end, bitter end, and we better prepare and pray that the end is not ours, because as is stated in page 219, the first rule of power is to persevere in the mistakes and not show the slightest crack in the wall of authority. So, to sum up, it all seems to point that farewell, old new order. We're in for the long haul of the new world disorder. So that's a wrap. Hope you can, folks, enjoy. Hope to see you again for our next review. Ta-da!